Imagine spending your entire life working, saving every penny, sacrificing vacations, ignoring luxuries, just to finally build your dream home. A place where your children can laugh, your family can feel safe, and your memories can grow. And then one morning you open your door and see a letter that says your home, your dream, must be destroyed. Would you fight back? Or would you surrender everything you worked for? For years, I lived in a tiny rented apartment. Every paycheck I saved a little bit. My family and I dreamed of one day having a place we could truly call ours. After 2 decades of patience and sacrifice, the dream finally became real. I found a piece of land in a quiet neighborhood, filed every permit, followed every law, and built a house with my own design. This wasn't just a house, it was my pride, my reward, my legacy. Every brick, every wall, every corner held the story of my hard work. When we moved in, it felt like stepping into the future we had always hoped for. My children ran through the hallways with laughter. My wife decorated every room with love. We thought the struggle was over. But we had no idea. The real fight hadn't even begun. This neighborhood was run by an HOA, Homeowners Association. At first, I didn't think much about them. They claimed their job was to protect the beauty and harmony of the community. I had nothing to hide. My house was legally approved and matched the style of the area. But the HOA board? They were a different story. A handful of smug, power-hungry people who believed they owned everyone's life. They loved sending out fines for small things. A lawn not cut short enough, a trash bin left out too long, even a car parked slightly outside the driveway line. Still, I never imagined they would dare to touch my home. Until the day the demolition notice appeared. It was a Wednesday morning. I stepped outside to grab the newspaper, sipping my coffee. That's when I saw it, bright, red, and ugly. My hands froze. I ripped the paper off the door and read it once, twice, 3 times. Asterisk, your property is in violation of HOA guidelines. This structure is not approved. Demolition order effective immediately. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My knees nearly gave way. My wife rushed out, saw the paper, and gasped. My kids asked me if we were losing the house. How could this be happening? I whispered. Asterisk, I did everything legally. Every permit. Every inspection. Every rule. But according to the HOA, none of it mattered. That evening, I sat at the dining table, staring at the notice like it was a death sentence. My family was silent. My wife's eyes were red from crying. My children clung to me, asking if we would have to move back into the tiny apartment. I wanted to stay strong for them, but inside I felt crushed. I had poured everything into this home. Every cent of my savings, every ounce of energy, every piece of my soul. And now some group of self-appointed rulers wanted to erase it all with a single piece of paper. I asked myself over and over, asterisk, why me? Why my house? What are they really after? The next day, I marched into the HOA office. Inside, 3 board members sat around a long table, sipping coffee as if they had the power of kings. I placed the notice on the table and demanded an explanation. They smirked. One of them, a woman in her 50s with a sharp voice, said, "Your house doesn't comply with HOA architectural standards. It was never approved. You'll need to remove it." I slammed my fist on the table. "That's impossible. I have every legal permit from the city. I followed the law." She shrugged. "City permits don't matter here. We have our own rules." Her arrogance made my blood boil. Asterisk, their own rules. Asterisk, who gave them the right to destroy people's lives? I left their office with rage burning inside me. I knew I couldn't accept this. I had proof that my house was legal. I had the papers to back it up. But I also knew one thing. HOA wasn't after rules. They were after power. And power often hides dirty secrets. So that night, as I sat in my study, I made a decision. I wouldn't just defend my home. I would uncover the truth about this HOA. Because deep down, I had a feeling their hands weren't as clean as they pretended. They thought they could bully me into silence. They thought they could crush my dream with one letter. But what they didn't know is that I was about to uncover secrets that would turn the entire community against them. Secrets that would prove the HOA itself was breaking the very rules they tried to use against me. So tell me, what would you do if your dream home was marked for demolition by the very people who were supposed to protect your neighborhood? What would you do if the very people threatening to destroy your home were the ones breaking the rules themselves? Would you stay quiet, or would you fight to expose their lies? The music swells, low and suspenseful. The camera slowly zooms in on my determined face. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw bulldozers tearing through my living room, my children's rooms, everything we built. I knew I couldn't let that happen. I pulled out every document I had, permits from the city, architectural approvals, inspection reports. I laid them across the table like puzzle pieces. Each one was stamped and signed. Each one proved my house was legal. So why did the HOA insist it was not? The next morning, I decided to visit the county building office. A clerk pulled my file and confirmed everything. Sir, your permits are clean. Your house is fully approved. No violations. I asked him, then why is the HOA calling my home illegal? He shrugged, lowering his voice. I can't say for sure, but this isn't the first time we've seen complaints from that HOA. They like to play by their own rules. That was the first spark of truth. If the county said I was legal, then the HOA had no right to order demolition. Which meant one thing: they were lying. I spent the next week digging through HOA's published bylaws. They had rules about lawn height, exterior paint colors, fence designs, and home additions. Strict, sometimes ridiculous, but nowhere did it say they could override city-approved construction. Then I noticed something strange. Many board members' homes had large improvements that clearly violated the rules. One had built a huge backyard deck without approval. Another had extended his garage into common property space. I began to wonder, if they could break their own rules, why were they targeting me? As I asked around the neighborhood, some of my neighbors began to whisper. One elderly woman pulled me aside. They don't like new families, she said, especially ones that don't bow to their power. Last year, they tried to force another homeowner to repaint his house 3 times until he finally sold and moved out. Another neighbor added, they think they can scare people away. But most folks don't fight back. They don't want the trouble. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't about legality. This was about control, and maybe even money. Late one evening, I was scrolling through old meeting notes on the HOA's public website. Buried in the documents, I found something explosive. Several years ago, the board approved a special project fund that allowed them to collect extra fees from homeowners. The purpose was listed as community improvements. But there were no records of those improvements ever being completed. Where did the money go? I leaned back in my chair, chills running through me. Could it be they were pocketing the funds? If that was true, exposing it would not only save my home, it could destroy their entire empire. The more I investigated, the more I realized I had the upper hand. My permits were flawless. Their accusations were baseless. And now I had potential proof of corruption. But I couldn't just sit on this information. I had to act. I had to show the community what these so-called leaders were doing behind closed doors. Still, a part of me hesitated. What if they fought back harder? What if they dragged me into endless legal battles? Then I looked at my kids, peacefully asleep in their rooms. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about protecting their future. I clenched my fist and whispered, enough is enough. It's time to fight back. I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I reached out to a lawyer who specialized in HOA disputes. He reviewed my documents and immediately nodded. You've got them cornered, he said. They can't order demolition when you've got full city approval. And if what you're telling me about their own violations is true, we can hit them where it hurts. Together, we began building a case. Not just to defend my home, but to expose the HOA's hypocrisy and corruption. The scene fades to black and white photos of HOA board members' houses with illegal extensions circled in red. My voice returns, calm but powerful. They wanted me to bow down. They wanted me to watch my dream collapse. But instead, I was about to show everyone that the real violators were the ones hiding in plain sight. So ask yourself this: what happens when an ordinary homeowner turns the tables on the very people who tried to destroy him? What happens when the HOA's own secrets finally come to light? Have you ever wondered what happens when the people who think they own the rules suddenly get caught breaking them themselves? What if the same HOA that threatened to tear down my house was hiding a dirty little secret all along? Today, the tables are about to turn. The morning of the HOA's so-called demolition day finally arrived. Trucks were lined up near the neighborhood, contractors standing by, clipboards in hand, ready to watch a home crumble. Neighbors gathered at a distance, whispering rumors, some pitying me, others secretly excited to watch the HOA flex their power. The president of the HOA stood confidently, arms crossed, convinced they had already won. But I wasn't scared anymore. I had been patient, I had been silent, and I had done my homework. Inside my folder were not just my house's legal documents, not just the permits they swore I didn't have, but something far more dangerous to them. Evidence. Proof that they themselves had violated their own bylaws. I stepped out onto my porch just as the demolition team prepared to roll forward. My voice was steady, but loud enough for every single neighbor to hear. You claim my house is illegal, but what about your clubhouse that was built without a permit? What about the fountain you installed with HOA funds, even though the budget didn't approve it? What about the new offices you constructed, breaking the same zoning rules you're accusing me of breaking? The crowd gasped. The HOA president's face drained of color. His confident smirk collapsed into nervous stammering. For the first time, the power shifted. I held up the evidence folder and waved it high. I've already filed this with the city council and the county inspector. If you want to demolish my home today, then first explain why your projects don't deserve the same fate. The inspectors who had been watching from the sidelines suddenly leaned in. One of them asked to see the documents. As pages flipped, their faces hardened. The HOA president tried to argue, but every word fell flat as the truth screamed louder than his excuses. Neighbors started murmuring, no longer against me, but against them. Wait, did they really misuse our money? Did they lie about permits? Have we been paying fees for their mistakes all along? The demolition team hesitated. The trucks stopped moving. The inspector stepped forward and announced, until further notice, all HOA projects are under review. This demolition is cancelled. The HOA board stood frozen, exposed for the frauds they were. My house still stood tall, unshaken, as if mocking their failed power grab. For the first time in weeks, I took a deep breath and smiled. But this wasn't over. Because while my home was safe, their empire of control was about to collapse. I took legal action, filing a lawsuit not just to protect my rights, but to expose their corruption. Court hearings dragged on, but each day brought more neighbors to my side. Testimonies stacked against the HOA board. Their arrogance had blinded them, and now it was tearing them apart from within. In the final judgment, the court ruled in my favor. The HOA was fined heavily for mismanagement, and several board members were forced to resign. My home remained untouched, stronger than ever, not just in bricks and wood, but in the story it carried. The same neighbors who once whispered against me now shook my hand, some even apologized. And the HOA? Their reputation was destroyed. They had tried to bury me, but ended up digging their own grave. So tell me, what would you do if the very people who tried to destroy your life were caught breaking the same rules they used against you? Would you stay silent, or would you fight back like I did? If you loved this story of revenge against HOA abuse, make sure to hit that like button, share it with someone who needs courage, and subscribe to this channel for more shocking HOA drama. Because trust me, this isn't the last time a homeowner fought back and won.